Bat Force Radio.
Bat Force Radio is rated M for mature, or should that be immature?
Hey guys, Dustin Wynn.
Hey, this is Scott Snyder.
This is Paul Dini.
And you're listening to Bat Force Radio.
And you're listening to Bat Force Radio.
You're listening to Bat Force Radio.
This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman, and you're listening to Bat Force Radio, so stay tuned.
Welcome back to Bat Force Radio, the Batman and DC podcast with no limits. A quick look at today's roundtable. We've got Bat Force Tom in California.
Hey.
And Dunk in New York.
What up?
And I'm Robin Cross in Canada. And today's guest is not only a massively successful musician as the drummer in one of the biggest metal bands of the 90s and 2000s with System of a Down, but also the founder of what could easily be called the coolest comic shops around with Torpedo Comics. Welcome to the show, Mr. John Dolmayan.
What's up, guys? Also, Canadian. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm
that's right.
all the way up here in Canada, eh?
Hey.
Yeah. So, which unfortunately means I haven't had a chance to visit the shops yet, but I did hit your booth last year in San Diego, and I got to talk to you for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, we try to do something a little bit different with the booths as well. A lot of my friends in the industry are kind of just still stuck in what they've been doing for the last 15, 20 years with their setups. We try to do something that's a little more interesting, and our hope is to bring in people that are into like higher end coin collecting and other hobbies that where you get millions of dollars more than you do for comic books for a particular coin, to get some of that money and some of those buyers into this industry. So we try to elevate what we do, and we hope to inspire other dealers and shops alike to do the same. I've always had an open door policy to anybody that wanted suggestions, or if they needed help with display building and stuff like that. We've got companies that we use that are very good at it, and quite affordable compared to what you would think. So it's just about improving our industry, trying to do different things, try to bring more attention to it, capitalize on some of the attention you're getting through all these movies for both Marvel and DC, and even outside of Marvel and DC, you're getting movies for comic book companies. So just try to capitalize on that and capture as much of an audience as we can.
And you have a ton of experience and from their knowledge in selling, like you were selling at conventions in the days pre-System of a Down. People might not even know that. Could you take us through what your origin story is in comic books, where you got into comics and how far back you go?
Sure. I want to say I probably go back further than 12, but 12 is when it became prominent in my life. I used to hang out with a friend of mine every weekend. We would take our $5 allowance and go to see movies, and we'd sneak out of movies and sneak into other ones. But we'd seen all the movies that were out so many times that he said, "Hey, why don't, instead of going to the movies, why don't we go to a comic book store that I go to?" And I said, "What's a comic book store?" Because I had seen, comic books at newsstands occasionally or at 7-Eleven or something like that, but I didn't know there were dedicated stores for them. And he took me into this store called Passport Comics on Victory Boulevard in North Hollywood, California. And it was just like that jaw-dropping, eye-opening moment. I walked in and I was hooked immediately. Comics on the wall. There were comics in bins. He had all the new issues pinned up in this like massive board that spanned like probably 500 square feet on the right side of the building. And on the left, it was just stacks of cinder blocks and wood. I think at one point there was an earthquake and the whole thing fell down, but it was kind of a chintzy setup, but it was just like back issues stacked up, no boards, all in bags. And I had my $5 and I went to the 25-cent bins, and I pulled out $5 worth of books, and that was it. That was the beginning of it for me. And very quickly, within a couple of months, I had several long boxes of comics. I had a subscription pull list, and that was it. The adventure started from there. Then later on, at a certain point, you can't really get an allowance. You get a job as a young adult, and I started working around 14 years old, and started paying for my own comic books, living with my parents still at that time. But around 18, it got tougher because then I purchased a car, although it was a really crappy one, and it always needed repairs, gas, insurance. I was paying my own phone bill, living in my parents' garage at that point, so I didn't have rent. But it was getting tougher to buy my new issues. And I made the decision to sell my older issues to pay for my comic book habit, to continue reading. And back then there was something called the Recycler, which is pretty much the same as like Craigslist or something like that, but it was an actual newspaper that came out, and they allowed you to do 2 or 3 free ads a week. So I started putting ads in the Recycler, and I was selling comics. And lo and behold, people would show up in my garage, and it was basically like a little mini comic book store for my 20 or 30 long boxes, and they would buy some books. And I had acquired some pretty cool books at that time, like my oldest X-Men book was number 3. I had a FF5, some good stuff, still good stuff today. And then I started doing conventions, and pretty much, like, even though I had multiple jobs that I almost always got fired from, I worked at Pepsi, I worked at UPS, I worked at Costco, I worked at Robinson's May Company. I got fired from all those jobs, by the way. And then I had other jobs too, but I consistently sold comics during all that time, and it became more and more of my living. And then I just said, okay, I'm better at this than I am working for somebody else, so let me just do this full time. And I got a booth at a place called Frank & Sons Warehouse, which if you're a collector in Southern California, you're probably aware of it. Great dealers, and met some great friends there that are still friends today. And that was the beginning of it. And then a couple of years later, System got signed, and I had to give up all the comic stuff. But what I would do is, even though I wasn't selling anymore, I just bought stuff while I was on the road. A lot of downtime. So we'd be in a small town somewhere in the Midwest, and I'd pull out the Yellow Pages and get into a taxi and just go to comic book shops during the day. And then play our show at night. We were fortunate back then because since we weren't that big, we were able to play a lot more markets that are smaller. Now it's just not feasible. You have to play, if you're going to play in Illinois, you're going to play in Chicago. If you're going to play in Michigan, you're going to play in Detroit. So you don't get to go to the mom and pop comic book shops, as well as like bookstores and thrift shops and all that stuff that I was able to do initially. Now they're doing that stuff. They're called American Pickers or whatever they're called. That show that goes to like small towns. Well, that was us back then, or me. And I'd buy great books, and sometimes I'd find somebody that had a collection and buy them. The bottom of the bus had just comic boxes, that I stored in the bottom of the bus, and the rest of the band members had to put their stuff inside somewhere. But they were pretty patient with it. And then, as that progressed, I was back to the comic scene. When I got back to LA and we had time off, I would go to the Shrine and sell at the Shrine. Bruce Schwartz put on a great show, which is I think it still exists. I haven't been around that much in LA to figure that out. But so once a month we'd set up at the Shrine, and then I'd see great dealers like John Verzel or Mike Carbonaro from New York, and Harley E from Michigan, and became friends with these guys, got to know them. A couple of curmudgeons like Jamie Graham, my friend, who I play poker with occasionally and take all his money. And, it just kind of developed, and I avoided for a long time doing a brick and mortar store because everybody told me how difficult it is and what a challenge it is to sell comics and how the comic industry is imploding and it's not even going to be around much longer. And all the usual stuff you hear the naysayers say. And I was like, well, I'm going to give it a shot, and we're going to do it completely differently than everybody else. We're going to go back issue centric. We're going to do themes. And, I invested some money into it, and here you have it. Now we have Torpedo Comics. We have 2 locations. I don't know how many more locations I'll have because I'm more interested in really making our primary store in Las Vegas kind of the amoeba music of the comic book world, and making it as big as possible. I have intentions of building out like an 8,000 square foot store.
Jesus Christ.
2-story, 25, 30-foot ceilings, so we can hang some cool stuff off the ceilings, and just making it something where not only the 12-year-old kid can come in and be wowed, but also the 40-year-old kid that's in all of us can come in and just have that same feeling, and just be interested in comics and collecting and the whole deal.
Yeah, it's funny. It's such a. I mean, you've kind of made it big in two areas that are almost impossible to do it in, and you've been a success at both of them. It's funny when I remember at this show in San Diego a while back, I was talking to one of your guys. He's wearing a Torpedo shirt, and I can't remember his name, but we were just talking about the shop, and at that time I think you hadn't yet expanded to Orange County. I know you didn't yet, and you were still at your old Vegas location. So we were talking about that, and I was like, man, like I was like, this shop is getting so big, it's crazy. And he goes, yeah, man, we started at Frankensons, and he started telling me the Frankenstein story, and I was like, oh, and then he's like, and then one day someone's like, yeah, man, John's band is playing, and we were like, oh, okay, that's cool. But then they were like, I guess you guys were opening for, I can't remember the thrash band, but you were opening for a thrash
Slayer?
band. Who was it? Was it Slayer?
Our first tour, yeah.
Holy shit. It might have been Slayer, because I remember him saying, he's like, oh, John's band's playing. That's cool. And someone's like, yeah, they're opening for Slayer? Hell yeah, I'll go. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's just
That
funny.
sounds like
It's like,
Carl, by the way. They got
is he a big guy with curly hair?
No, well, curly hair.
Or
I don't know who
does he have
that is,
a
but-
goatee?
Was he Filipino?
No, but oh man, you know what, man?
He's Pacific Islander. He just doesn't look like it.
Maybe. He's been with you since,
Carl's a good guy.
yeah, he's been with you since those days. I know that.
Yeah.
But he was telling me, it was the funny story about how, like, John's band's playing. He's like, oh, okay. And then it's like they're opening for Slayer. And he's like, oh, I'll go. And so it's just, it's crazy. Like, it really seems that you have this thing going, this passion going at Frankensons. There's a lot of people who listen to us all of us are very familiar with Frankensons, passionate dudes. And you had this one world going on, and then you were almost like sidetracked by this completely different world that is, I mean, you can get lost in that world with how intricate, how big, how little you can be. You made it big there, and then you kind of circled your way back to your original passion, and now you're turning that into what it is now with Torpedo. And we were talking off air, you have to have at this point like the most prestigious collection for sale at a comic shop, right?
I don't know for sure, but we certainly have, $1 million or so in the vault at any time.
Right.
That's just that one room.
Yeah.
That isn't like our bin books. By the way, how's the lighting for me? Is it okay?
I can't see is your video on?
Oh, is this just radio?
I mean, we have, if you want to do video.
Oh, so the video doesn't matter. It's all good. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're in your underwear, we have no
Put
idea.
some clothes on, John. Jesus Christ.
I was jerking off, but whatever.
I mean, so was
you
I,
guys
but
can't
you
see
asked
me at all?
permission first.
We're in the
Is there a
COVID
way for you
world.
No.
to see me on this? Let me see.
There should be
We're-
at the bottom. Are you on?
We're
Oh,
only
there you
going
go.
to release it
Oh, there
you go.
on audio
There we
form
go.
anyway.
I thought
There it is.
you were recording video this whole time, but it's all
We
good.
are, but it's up to you whether you want to show your face or not. Everyone knows what you kind of look like at this point, but yeah. So what I was saying is, I also have to apologize, John. I was very rude to you. Okay.
You were.
I was very rude to you. Yeah, a couple of years back, I won tickets from K-Rock to go see System at the Forum. It was like Acoustic Christmas, I think, and you guys were
Okay.
headlining. You were headlining the show, and
Yeah, our stage didn't work.
I remember
when
that.
the stage got stuck.
That was very
Always
funny.
happens to us.
Yeah. So that happened, but that was just one of a few memorable things that night. What they provide, it was like open bar for like this backstage area for the concert winners, I guess.
Okay.
And I had a few. I'm not gonna lie to you.
All
And
right.
and so I guess I had to go to the bathroom. You guys hadn't gone on stage yet. It was a big bill, so it's probably like 3 hours before you go on stage. And I had to take a piss. Huge line. I'm not waiting in that line. So I go back to the backstage area where they had let us in to begin with, And then this lady was like, "Oh, you can't go that way." And I was like, "No, I can't remember the lie I told her. She bought it." So I get into this elevator, I go upstairs, I find a bathroom, take a leak, come back downstairs, and as I open the elevator door, it's you, who I assume would be your wife, Jim Lee, Jim Lee's wife. Looks like you guys were like holding bags, like you just had like a gift exchange because it was like Christmas time, you know?
Mm.
And so you're in the elevator, and so like, I'm buzzed. I see you, I see Jim, and like you look at me kind of like, oh shit, like this drunken fan just like stumbled upon me backstage, and I blow right past you, like completely ignore you. I go straight to Jim, and I go, and so I like turn my back to you even now that I remember it. Like I have my back to you. I'm like, Jim, they just announced Dark Knight 3. Is Frank Miller going to write it? Who's going to draw it? Are you going to draw it? Who's doing the coverage? How are you going to do that? And I just like, just Dark Knight 3, Frank Miller, Batman, blah, blah, blah. And he was so nice. Like he was so nice.
Jim's the nicest guy on the planet, bro.
Oh, he's so nice. So nice.
Guy.
And he stopped what he was doing with you guys completely. You're in an elevator, and this drunk asshole is stopping you guys at your show that you're playing, and he's so nice and having this conversation with me. You got to tell you, and he's like, he couldn't tell me everything, obviously, but he's like, I can't tell you that. I can't tell you this. He's like, it's gonna be cool. Don't worry about that. Just it's gonna be cool. Oh, blah 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 blah. And then I'm like, can I get a picture with you? And he's like, yeah, sure. It's like he turns around, gives his bag to his wife, and you're looking at us just like, and so I get a picture with Jim, and then at this point he keeps talking to me. He's like, oh, he goes, be on the lookout for this. We got this coming out, and then you're like, Jim, we gotta go. Jim, we gotta go.
Yeah, I gotta get on stage.
Yeah, we're in an elevator. Like you guys were in an elevator, and you're literally holding the elevator for this jackass talking to Jim Lee. And so I just remember that was the funniest thing because I get out of the elevator and I was like, holy shit! Like I didn't even say hi to the guy whose show this is in the first place. Like I'm totally geeking
it was a
out.
K-Rock show. It wasn't really our show.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're headlining it though, you know.
Either way, you may have expected to see me there, but you didn't expect to see Jim. And
well,
I totally
did.
get it.
I did though.
One-on-one time with Jim is important.
Yeah, and so another full disclosure, I did know he was going to be there because he posted on social media that he was going to be there that night. So I swear to God, I told my wife, like, I'm going to fucking find him there because I have to ask about Dark Knight 3 because they had literally just announced it like a couple of days before.
Well, you know what, man? Your tenacity paid off. You found him. You found me.
I know.
You found our wives.
And he broke the stage to make sure that he would get his opportunity.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I in your
Yeah.
I'm just fucking with you. Wow, Popeyes, huh? Yeah. I'm glad that diet's going well.
Oh, you're at work right now.
Well, define work.
Kind of everyone's
I
on
don't
the
think
same
anybody who
boat.
works for me thinks they're at work. Are you at work? He's having fun. You hear that?
That's hilarious.
But, yeah, Jim's great.
So
the story of how I met Jim is kind of interesting too, and goes back to me being a comic book dealer / musician and how those worlds collide sometimes. There used to be something called WonderCon in Oakland. Before San Diego Comic-Con bought WonderCon, it used to be in Oakland in an area with no restaurants, so it was tough to eat there. But it was in a hotel, and we were set up, and Jim was the guest. So it was Jim, Ollie Garza, Lee Bermejo, and Carlos Deanda. And they were kind of set up doing a signing. It was like basically a Wildstorm section, right? And I, being a big Jim Lee fan, I always used to take CDs with me wherever I went. Sure, you gonna eat in here? No, you can eat in here. You sure? Yeah, I'm just doing an interview.
yeah, tell him it's fine. He wants to hear the Jim Lee story.
You take precedence. That's for my Canadian friend.
Eh?
Oh shit! You gonna make that kind of noise? Asshole.
It's gonna make us hungry.
Anyway, so anyway. All right, don't let us bother you. So I had a bunch of CDs. You know, the first two I think were out at that time. This must have been like right around 2001, early 2001. And I went and I found the line for Jim. It was a mile long. But, of course, I had a booth, so I couldn't really stay there that long. So I just went to the front of the line. I said, Jim, I'm a tremendous fan. I want to thank you for your art and for everything you've done. And I want to give you this gift. And I gave him the two CDs. And I said, it's nice to meet you. And then I went back to he said something smart ass, which I didn't even catch at the time. Because I told him the band name. I go, I'm John. I'm the drummer for System of a Down. And, I have this for you. And then he was like, what? Symptoms of a Down? He was being a smart ass, but I didn't know it. So after I left, he used my CD as a ruler to like draw something, for a fan. Because I think he just thought it was, he probably gets 50 CDs or back then he probably did, from fans. Oh, this is my band, check it out. This is my artwork, whatever, right? And I don't think he looked at the back and it said, Sony Music. So it was like legit, right? Like this is something that was put out. And he had no idea. But the other three guys were System fans. So I guess after I left, they were, oh, that's the drummer for System, blah, blah, blah. And they explained to Jim who System was. And then, I was back at my booth just kind of hanging out with my employee. And then, lo and behold, here comes Jim and the group, like a bunch of little ducklings behind them. They were all laughing. And he came up and he thanked me for the CDs and gave me like an art print. And the other guys gave me some prints as well. And I was like, wow, that's so nice of you guys. And then we were just chatted for a few seconds. And he's like, well, we're going to go celebrate. This is before he was married to Carla, but she was there as well. And he said, we're going to go celebrate Carla's birthday. And I was like, and he goes, do you want to come?
Wow.
Like, do I want to come and hang out with Jim? Yeah, I think we'll come. So, I got my crew. We went, we met him. We had a great time. And we've been friends ever since. He came to Vegas a couple months later, and we hung out in Vegas. And we just really developed a very strong friendship. And it was just out of that, kind of chance meeting of me being at a convention. And, who knows if we'd ever have met otherwise. And he's turned out to be, if not my best friend, one of my closest friends in the world. And I was his best man. He's my best man as well at my wedding. So, it just developed into this love affair that we have. I love him to death. I think he's one of the best guys on the planet. And tireless worker. I can't say enough good stuff about Jim. You guys know how he is. You know firsthand because when you met him, that's who he is.
Yeah.
It wasn't like after you left, he was like, oh, who's that asshole?
No.
And I said that, but he didn't say
that. Yeah. No, it really showed because, he really did. He really took the time to really be a good guy, like answer the questions I had. And, I think he knew where he was. Like he knew he was at your event, but he was so nice to like talk to a fan that kind of stumbled in. And
that's just how he is. That's just who he is. And I don't think he could be different.
It's kind of like, I think sometimes you can't say it for everybody because getting to know musicians, sometimes when they get really big, some of them can be assholes, some of them are cool, but I feel like in comics, like there's a lot of creators, big names, they started out because they were kids who loved it, and they were always that fan, they were always that kid that was going up to their favorite creator, or they're looking up to somebody. So I feel like there's that camaraderie with a lot of the creators who, like, when they're talking to fans, it's almost as if like it's just two fans talking, because they've been in the same place as you were before, and that's why they're where they're at now.
Especially if you could talk to them about something that they're not working on. All right, like just get into the fandom of it with them, because they're just, for the most part, most of the artists and writers in this business are just what you just said, fans who came into it, worked their way up, fantasized about getting into comics, and then did it.
Yeah.
So you can definitely talk to them about, especially me being closer to their age. You guys are younger, but I'm closer to the age of most of the guys that I'm interacting with. So we could talk in detail about the comics that were coming out in the early 80s when we were all just fans. And I was going to the comic book store and they were going to the comic book store.
Yeah.
And I would say, if I gave any advice to anybody, there's a way of approaching somebody that's famous, right? You can completely go up to them and geek out, and that's appreciated, but there's a level of your guard being up for those type of fans, because you don't know to what level they're gonna geek out. I've had people burst into tears and get hysterical, and I'm looking behind, like, for me, like, is this for me? Is Jim behind me again?
Yeah.
And then there's people that come up to you and they just tell you, how something you've done artistically has changed their lives. You know, like saved their lives in some cases, especially with music. People really, I mean, they put a lot of, what's the word? What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know.
Passion?
You're no help. They invest a lot of their time. Invest a lot into the music. It's not their time. It's their emotion or well-being. Like
passion.
When they're listening to passion as well. When they're listening to your music, they relate to you. Like even though they don't know you through your music. So they feel like they have a relationship with you that you're not quite aware of, right? Because as the artist, you're producing it, but you're not thinking about all that stuff. You're just thinking about trying to make it as good as possible. Yeah. You know, to represent who you are. And then after you put it out there, that's it, right? Like you have very little to do with it at that point. It's the world's at that point, you know? Yeah. And I guess it's the same in some ways in comics, you know, like people feel like they know the artist or writer because of what they write or what they draw or paint, you know? And the reality is you don't know them, but you feel this kinship with them. So when you approach somebody, that whole geek out thing is great. You know, we appreciate it. And, you know, very rarely have I had a bad day bad enough to not take a request to sign something or take a picture with a fan. But the other side of it is when somebody comes up to you and talks to you about something that you have in common, which is a love for something, right? Like I've talked in interviews before about the bands I like. So sometimes fans will take that different approach and come and say, hey, I really want to talk to you about The Who. It seems to mean a lot to you. You know, Keith Moon being one of the greatest and most irreverent drummers in history. I feel the same way about him, you know, like, etc. Right? And then that's like more of a personal conversation where you're interacting with the person with their guard down as opposed to with their guard up. And I would say the same goes for comics, you know. You go and talk to Jim and say, oh my God, you're the best artist in the world, and this, that. And he's heard that a million times before. And he's also smart enough to realize that that's not true, right? Like he's a great artist, but there is no best artist in the world. There's no such thing. There's no best drummer or best this or best that. It's just personal choices that you make. So he's going to take that with a grain of salt. But if you go up to Jim and say, hey, man, you grew up liking comics, right? Like, what did you think of Watchmen when it came out originally? Or what did you think of, the first time you read an Avengers book or whatever the case may be? Or how did Batman affect you the first time you were introduced to Batman? So that's more of a personal relationship you're having for that 1 or 2 minutes that you're having that conversation, if the person has time, of course, if they're not. You also have to be cognizant as a fan that although you might have time for that interaction, you don't know. If you've seen Jim at a comic convention, I've seen his schedule. I think there's like 8 seconds for him to go to the bathroom. Yeah. And the rest of the time is do this, do that. Panel,
he's not allowed to shake after he goes to the bathroom. He just has to zip up and go.
No shaking necessary, Richard. He's on there like a horse, so it goes right to the bottom. But so I would just counsel anybody that's going up to somebody. It's always appreciated, even if they're in a bad mood. Trust me, it's nice that somebody cares enough to come say hello to you, and do it. But like, if you're a fan and you just want a picture, make it quick, take your picture, and then move on. That would be my recommendation.
While we're on the topic of your insight, I wanted to pick your brain about this. So I read a quote from you before that you took pleasure in proving people wrong when they tell you can't do something. So you have achieved success in 2 things that most parents would tell their kids is not a good idea. Don't waste your money on comic books, and you're not going to be a rock star. You're a great example of people aspiring to do things that they're told they can't. What would be your advice to people that are beginning on whatever their path is and are being told that they can't do it?
All right, so there's 2 reasons people tell you can't achieve something. One is because they're afraid that you're going to fail and you're not going to have anything to back it up and you're going to have a horrible life. Those people are usually related to you. The second is because they're afraid to put everything at risk and take the chance and take that leap. And they don't want anybody else to do it because that way you guys can all be losers together. You get what I'm saying? So Be careful where you're getting advice from. Now, for me, it was like fuel. right? Like it was jet fuel for me when my parents told me, you're not going to make it in music, go to school, do that, whatever, get a job. They pleaded with me to do something that was more of a normal vocation. And part of it was because my dad was a musician. My dad played saxophone, and he played the nightclubs and all that stuff, and tried to raise a family with that while he cut hair. And he knew just how difficult it was. He knew the pitfalls, and in the old school, if you weren't the singer, especially in Armenian bands and more ethnic, if you go around the world, like even if you go to Armenia today, the singer of my band is looked at differently than the rest of us, even though we're equally responsible for system success. They just don't look at it that way. They almost have like a wedding singer mindset towards that stuff, where the wedding singer is the band, and I mean he or she is the person that's the focal point, and then the rest of it is just a backup band. That just doesn't happen to be the case in a real band, like especially like System, where you have 4 people that are each talented in different ways and bring something unique to the table, and are equally responsible for the success of the band. So if you're gonna try to achieve something in life, let's say you want to be an inker or an artist or a writer, whatever it is you want to be, if you're not prepared to fail at the utmost level, then you probably shouldn't take the road in the first place, because you have to say to yourself, I'm going to leave myself really no other options. I'm going to succeed, but I'm going to die trying. And what happens is, I had plenty of friends that I was in bands with. From 15 and up, I was in bands. They either got married or had kids or got a good job, and the music became secondary. Then the music never became secondary for me. It was always the first and only thing that I was focused on. So I remember when I worked at Pepsi, and it sucked working at Pepsi because they worked me to death because I was actually a really good employee. I would get up at 3 a.m. and I would get off work at 5 or 6 at night. Well, more often than not, I went to a gig that my band had at the time in my Pepsi uniform and did sound check. And then I would go home, change, and come back and play, hang out with my friends for a few hours, try to sleep for 3-4 hours, and then go back to work. But of course I got fired from that job. That was because I couldn't maintain that level of work that they had me under. And in all honesty, after I did get fired, they had to hire 2 people to do my job. So I knew that they were taking advantage of me at the time. I just didn't realize it because I was young. Looking back, I know they were. But irrespective of that, it enabled me to buy drumsticks, drum heads, my kick pedal when it broke. These little jobs that I had, even though I got fired from them all, enabled me to survive and keep pushing forward. I will tell you that when I was around 24, I was having lunch with a friend, and I was just sitting there, and I was like, man, all my heroes, they were already into their 3rd album by the time they were 24, 25. Because I was looking at the 60s and 70s when bands were getting signed when they were 17, 18 years old. And by their mid-20s, some of their careers were over. And I was like, man, it doesn't feel like it's going to happen, but I know I've got it. I know I was meant for this. And you start doubting yourself, but I doubted myself, but I kept the moral of the story is, no matter how much doubt I had, self-doubt, I kept moving forward with it until I was successful. And that took getting in the System, and System would have been successful whether I was in the band or not. But I think they would have achieved less without me. Because of my role in the band that most people will never know anything about, because it's all kind of behind the doors, keeping stuff together. Get the guy that gets up at 7 a.m. to go do the interview at the radio station when nobody else wants to. All that stuff. It's all just a bunch of dominoes, right? One leads to another, and then eventually you get to where you are now if you have the songs, which we did. As far as the comic books are concerned, I got home and the comic books were on the trash pile outside. My 6 or 8 long boxes when I first started collecting. And luckily I ditched school to go watch Robotech. Otherwise the trash guy came right around the time I got out of school. So I was able to take the comic back inside. Damn. And then argue with my mother about why you can't throw away my stuff, I mean, everybody has that story of their mom throwing away their stuff. But again, with the comics, what are you wasting your time for? It's a waste of money. These are stupid. Let's just give them away. Why are you trying to? Because when I first started to sell comics, I was losing money going to conventions. And I was getting money from my dad just to be able to even go set up at a convention. And I remember one convention where I was driving there in the morning, and I had a beat up 86 Beretta or 87 Beretta, Chevy Beretta. And I used to fit like 12 long boxes in the car. And I had those closet organizers that I would use for my stands, which alarmingly a lot of dealers still use. I'm like, dude, you can't come up with something better. But whatever. So, and I would put them in the car in 6-footers and go set up my booth, if you want to call it that. And, I was doing conventions that were basically like card conventions, but I was trying to sell comics. And I would lose money. And then that one morning I got a ticket on the way there, and the ticket was like $200. And I went there, and the booth cost me $30, and I only made $15.
Fuck.
So I go home, and my dad's like, how'd it go? And I told him, he's like, what are you wasting your time for? But as much as they were negative about it, they still supported me in my ventures, right? Like they knew in their hearts, they knew that the two things that I was concentrating on were exactly what you shouldn't concentrate on. But I give them credit. They would complain a lot, and they would try to give me advice a lot, but they didn't stop me from doing it. And they were supportive in that way. So you do need some support, but if you're going to persevere, you got to work at it. I used to practice 6-7 hours a day. I played with bands and go play live gigs in front of my girlfriend and a bartender. I'm setting up all that equipment and everything.
Got fired from Pepsi because you were walking around drumming on cans.
I was doing that too, in people's heads occasionally. But if you're going to be successful in anything, if you don't have that inner will to fight for something, it's not going to happen for you. And if you should be able to be honest about that with yourself. You look in the mirror and you see, who am I? Am I somebody that will never take no for an answer and keep persisting? No matter how many times the door's shut on my face. If you're not that person, don't bother. Because the likelihood of making it in music to the level of System of a Down is literally 1 in a billion. Literally. The likelihood of making it to this level in a comic book company, you have a better chance. But you better work your ass off, and you better make sure you're surrounded by idea people, and you better have ideas yourself that are innovative, set you apart from everybody else. Because at the end of the day, we all get the same books from Diamond. Or what's the other? Luna. Or whoever you get your books from these days. But how do you present them? What's your customer relationships? What are your customer relationships? What's your focal point at your store? Do you love what you do? Or are you just doing it because that's what you got stuck with? If you don't, by the way, there's plenty of people in comics that get into it for the right reasons. It's a tough way to make money. You got to guess what people are going to want in 3 months.
Yeah.
That's not fun for retailers. The big two don't make it easy on retailers. They get in our way a lot. They make things difficult. The distribution channels are not perfect. There's a lot against. That's the way Canadians said. There's a lot against a retailer, comic book retailer. But with that being said, there's also a lot of money to be made if you do it right. We do signings. We have a lot of exclusives that we do. We have mystery boxes.
Your VIP.
VIP.
What's that?
Oh,
Your VIPs.
We have VIP program. I've never seen anybody else do a lot of things we do.
No.
And
nobody else has that.
Huh?
Nobody else has that. You offer dinners with fucking Frank Miller, man. I don't think anyone else can do that.
Yeah, a lot of people won't have that opportunity. And I gotta tell you that the artists appreciate it too. They're sitting there. Again, it's that thing where when you're going to their booth at a convention or their table to go get a signature, they're there for that. They have a certain wall up, and you're going to get a certain experience. But once you go to lunch, it's a different experience. They're more relaxed. They're not on guard. The people aren't nervous because they've done it before. All my VIPs, They get, we have a gold VIP. We limit it to how many people can come. So it's the same people every time. So one time they met Jim Lee. Next time that they might meet Liefeld. The next time it might be McFarlane if we could ever get him to come to the store. Art Adams. And these are just normal people at the end of the day having lunch at my favorite Mexican restaurant in Vegas. And the fans get to have conversations with them and interact with them. And sometimes it's really just being a fly on the wall and listening to the conversations I have with them. They've gone to some weird places. They've gone to some serious places, stuff we don't want anybody else hearing, and also some really interesting places about their history. And they're open and frank in a way that they won't be in an interview process.
Yeah.
Like we're doing an interview here. I'm going to speak my mind to you, but it's going to be different than what I would say if I was sitting in the car with my friend or my wife. You're getting a little bit of that experience when we have these dinners. And not everything is to make money either. I don't make money on that stuff because I pay for every single one of those dinners. So when you factor in the amount of free autographs they get, the gold membership's $500. And that might seem a lot to somebody for a year, but you get 3 free autographs from every single guest that comes in minimum. Sometimes it's more. You get the dinner. You get first come services. There's other events that we have that you're exclusive for. Any special books or anything else we have, you're first in line for them. So there's a lot of benefit to it. But if people would pay $500 just to have lunch. People do pay $500 just to have lunch because I know certain people that have seen what we do have also started doing these things. So you get a lot for what you pay for. And again, I would say that not everything is about making money. So if you can do things that encourage fandom and loyalty, you're going to get loyalty from a lot of these people. Initially, we used to just do it. We did have to make some changes to what we did. Before we had the VIP program, we just made it free for anybody to come and bring books and get them signed. And we realized, like, hey, we're putting up all the money to bring the guest. We're paying for their hotels, their flights, their car service. Some of them charge fees to be there. We're paying for all this. And there's all these other comic book stores. They're selling product in relation to that guest, and then you're getting it signed for free. What do we get out of it? We're not getting your loyalty as a customer. We're not selling your product. We're providing all the service for you. So we decided, hey, if you're a Torpedo VIP and you're a person that buys from our store, you're going to get first service. And if you're not, then you're going to have to pay for the autographs, just like you would anywhere else, because we have to make our money back at the end. So we did have to make some adjustments. And some people were butthurt about that. And I was like, well, what money are you putting in my pocket at the end of the day? I got to pay my employees. Isn't that badass? Right here.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of our covers for Detective 1027.
Oh, that's the Tony Daniel.
That's right. How sick is this?
Wow.
How'd you get your hands on the original there? You bought it?
I bought all the originals.
All the originals for those
yeah.
27 variants?
All 9. Yeah.
You're ridiculous. You're ridiculous.
Well, I
Went
can't have somebody else have the cover to my variant.
I guess
That's
you're right.
true.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be cool. So yeah, I bought
Quick
all
question.
9 of them.
Well, yeah. Can you were saying about and we got a little sidetracked there. You're making some great points there about God damn it, with your comic book fucking collection. Jesus Christ. Distracting me. No, but you're saying, yeah, the rewards programs, the VIP stuff that you're offering to fans, you got us a little sidetracked because you can't just show us original art like that and then just put it away. So going with that, I know, well, obviously 27 at least, if not more. But so kind of in line with that, you've gotten to a place where you have this perspective of the comic industry. You've been able to do things your way, make it work for you. You're obviously doing well. What do you think like your time in a touring, because the music industry is a fickle fucking business, so do you think that you learned anything kind of like either by as an artist getting stepped on, the business side of it? Do you think that you learned a lot from that industry and brought it over to the comic stuff? Because I
wouldn't say I learned a lot. I don't think the two are interchangeable, and you're kind of treated as a veal when you get to the level system is on tour and stuff, like I'm not over there helping my drum tech set up the drums. I'm in 5-star hotels. I eat at 5-star restaurants. We travel by jet a lot. You know, we got a very cush life on tour. And then we get to go play in front of 50,000 people at the end of the night. Boo-hoo.
Yep.
You know, tough life. But like with comics, it's different because, and one of the reasons I enjoy doing comics, and I like to maintain, you know, as much of like a grounded lifestyle as possible. It's hard to do when, you know, when you get the attention you get in a band as big as System, you know. And that's why I like comics, because I'll go to a comic convention, I'll set up like everybody else, although my booth is much better. You know, it looks better because I spend the money. I'm guaranteed to make $0. You know, I know exactly what I'm going to make when I go on tour. In fact, I usually have it spent in my head before I even get money. But with comics, you know, it's all a matter of how much prep we do. Like this, you know, I did 9 covers, 27 versions in total for the 1,000th appearance of Batman. You ever heard of that before? 27 variants?
Nope.
Comic company. It could be a colossal failure. It could be a colossal success. But there, in my opinion, there's no such thing as failure. You know, because this helps gain knowledge for the brand of Torpedo Comics.
Right.
You know, and going forward, this will not be the last thing we do that's going to be innovative. And I was trying to do something even more, but Sideshow didn't get back to me in time to do it. I wanted to do like a statue of the Bat Signal with gargoyles of Joker, Catwoman, Penguin, and, you know, Bane or somebody.
Oh, the Rogues.
As the base of the statue. And then I wanted all our books to basically go into the base of the statue, and that was where they would be stored for our 27 variants. And I wanted the thing to light up. We didn't have time to get it done, and I probably would have lost a ton of money on it, but what's up? But that's not the point. You know, like, I can't stress how important it is to do things for the right reasons. You know, you do things because it's innovative. It's great to do. Look at the covers we have. They're sick. Like, every one of them is completely different.
Yeah, they are.
You know?
I love how excited you are about it.
I love these covers. That's what, trust me, I'm not doing 9 different covers and buying all 9. It was not cheap to buy these covers. I'm not doing it if I'm not a fan myself. You know, This is the 1,000th anniversary of Batman. The 1,000th. Not Detective 1000. This is the 1,000th anniversary. That's a big deal. You know? So we wanted to go big at Torpedo. That's what we do.
Yeah.
And wait till you see the boxes that we're storing these things in.
Yeah.
We make the box cost me $8 for the box.
For a box? Wow.
For the box? Holy shit.
For the box.
Like, what gave you the idea about the boxes? 'Cause I remember, like, the first mystery box you guys had, I bought like 3, and I saw the presentation of the box. I'm like, holy cow, like, this is amazing. I can't wait to open it, but I kind of want to leave it alone because it looks so nice. I think
That's
I still got the box.
I wanted even the boxes to be collectible.
That's what it feels like. Yeah, it's perfect.
And we're going to keep innovating. This is not going to be the end. Like, every time you think that's it, no, there's going to be something even cooler. I'm constantly looking for ideas, constantly looking for things to make them more collectible. I want people to store their boxes and present them, not just, you know, like the idea, somebody had the idea of taking comic book boxes that were white comic book boxes for 50 years or so, or whatever it was. And they said, wait a minute, why don't we put comic art on the boxes? You're storing comic books in them. Why not put comic book art on the outside? Genius, right?
Yep.
Now they're not just white boxes in a closet. You can have it out. It's a presented thing, you know, like it's a piece of art in itself. So I said, why don't we take that and utilize that in our mystery boxes? Now, we're not the only people that do mystery boxes. I didn't create mystery boxes. We just do it better, right? We have better prizes. We have better content. And what we're striving towards is all exclusive content in our mystery boxes. So you can only get that stuff from us. We just don't quite have the numbers of subscribers yet to get to the point where we can do, you know, the massive 3,000 print runs that we're required to do on a lot of this stuff. We were able to do a lot less because we did 9 covers for the Batman 1027. So on those, our maximum print run is 1,500, which is not a lot of books, right? So if you want that Art Adams double cover, that's like ridiculous, probably the best Batman work he's ever done, you can only get it through Torpedo. There's only 1,500 of those retail normal edition, and then it goes down from there. It's 1,000 of the black and white, and only 750 of the no trade dress. That's not a lot of books. You know, well, that's the entire print run. So anybody that gets that, initially it may not be a big deal, but I think long term, as we make ourselves more and more unique in what we do, and make the torpedo variants themselves something that people strive to collect. For example, I'll give you another example. Our Action Comics 1000 variant with Jim Lee. You guys seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that cover is the first appearance of that bad guy on a cover.
Oh, shit.
Have you ever seen that?
I didn't know it was the first appearance.
He's only on that cover. Out of all those variants they did for Action 1000, the only one that has that villain on the cover is ours.
Wow.
So eventually people are going to pick up on that that's the first cover appearance of that character. And that's good for Torpedo. And because that says, okay, well, wow, they're doing unique stuff.
Yeah.
And we got little surprises like that we don't even tell people about. But we want the market to kind of like tell people about it later.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And as we
Catch
develop
on.
our, what's that?
Smart. It's like a little grassroots movement.
Correct. So again, it's like, you know, I put out over $200,000 on this on these 9 variants. You know, a lot of money out there. And of course, I understand not every comic book shop can do that. But the idea is we're going to invest into our brand, and we're going to give people incredible product, and we're constantly going to try to innovate. We're making challenge coins for the 500 boxes that we did, where you get every single cover. You know, and I know it's a lot of money. $500 is a lot of money. You know, but it's like $1,100 of value if you just go by the retail. And on top of that, you're getting a limited edition poster that's only available in that box, and a challenge coin that we had made. And it's a really cool heavy duty challenge coin, the kind that the military give out. And like, if you've ever been gifted one of those by anybody in the military or police or anything, they're really cool, and they're substantive. You know, it's heavier than like a silver dollar. So you're only going to get that out of that box. And once they're gone, they're gone. I'm not making them again. You know, so stuff like that later could become very collectible, and we're kind of banking on that. Plus, not to mention, we did a print run of 750 books, one cover, that's got all the covers, right?
Oh.
So I haven't really told too many people that, but I'm telling you guys. So every single cover, all 9 covers, are on a one cover variant that we made look like a puzzle. Right, so it looks like puzzle pieces put together. Now, only 500 of those are going out, and then we're going to do 250 signed and numbered version. But if you buy that box, you're the only person that's going to get that. Only 500 of you. That's it, worldwide. Right? So we're hoping that one of these things catches fire and becomes like $1,000 or $2,000 book. Because again, that just brings people back to like, wow, I can not only get my value. I'm not just buying variants that are worthless the next month. I'm getting variants that, hey, I can make money on at some point. You know, and that's what we want. We want. Somebody told me a long time ago, if you really want to sell stuff, capitalize on people's greed and need to make money. So if we can make it so that the people that are loyal to us can have profit in the books that they buy from us, or just hold on to them and enjoy them, but not like have to sell them for $1 later. That's something that's very important to Torpedo. You know, creating that value. We want the boxes to be worth money. You know, because we give the boxes away for free when you buy this stuff. But I mean, we're doing like foil boxes now. Just we're going above and beyond. That's why they cost so damn much.
And there are some things that you do because it brings money into the shop, and some things that you do just for the way it makes people see the shop and feel about the shop.
Yes, perception is important. That's why I don't rest on my laurels. You know, like most people that come into our shop say they've never seen anything like it in the world. You know, and we did that with a fairly modest budget. But what I have planned for the next one is going to be a place where people come. It's going to be a destination. You're going to want to go there. You're going to have to go there. You're going to be compelled to see it one day.
I think we need to get a location in Canada.
I've talked about that with some friends I have that live in Calgary.
Yeah.
And they wanted to kind of be under the Torpedo banner. And people have asked me, you know, would you consider franchising and stuff? And The short answer is no, because I can't control the quality of what you're going to have in those stores.
Exactly. Yeah.
And really,
keep the brand.
If you look at it in a short-sighted way, you make a lot more money doing that. But it's just not what I'm looking for. I'd rather have one store that's the best in the world than 1,000 mediocre ones, even though financially I do much better having the bunch of stores, you know. And the only reason I have the Orange County store is because my buddy who runs that store, he's the manager, they were going to go out of business. And rather than have the comic book store go out of business, I've known him for 30 years. I said, okay, well, you know, here's what you're doing wrong. Why don't I just pay your bills off, get you current with Diamond and everything, and I'll take over the store. You'll work for me, and I'll put some money into it, and we'll make it something, you know, that's viable. And it's doing like 4 times what he was doing now, and now he's making more money now, right? Like, because he had to have a second job just to be able to run the store, and now he doesn't have a second job. He gets to spend time with his kids. Everybody wins, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't really want to do that over and over again, because with him, I've known him so long that I know that he'll grasp the importance of learning the Torpedo way of doing business. I can't control that if I have 20, 30 locations.
Yeah.
Or at least I can't do it with the infrastructure that we have set up now. Now, if that happens one day and we have control over it and we have great owners, we can depend on them, it's not something that I'm completely ruling out. It's just right now I'd rather just build the brand in the grassroots manner that we're doing it, and develop like a unique following of people that have faith in what we do, and just try to innovate. And not to mention, you guys know I don't know if you're aware of it actually, but I'm putting out my own comic book through my own company.
We were just talking about that, earlier.
So we're gonna have tons of exclusive content that you can only get via, you know, the Torpedo boxes. You know, so, and there's a very good chance that this thing is going to get picked up and made into a TV show or a movie at some point. I would say like a high chance of it. I'm already in talks.
It's a very, very, very cool concept. You want to just real quick kind of give the little rundown of what the concept is of the book?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a quick rundown on it, but I'll give you like a kind of a synopsis. All right. So we discovered that there's a meteor coming towards the Earth. And by the way, I had that idea when I was watching Armageddon. So
my first thought was Ben Affleck.
I love that.
Michael Bay.
Yes. Well, one of his best, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
And I was, you know, that's on every weekend on TV. So, you know, I was watching it one of the multiple times that I've seen it. And then I was like, oh, what a cool concept. But, you know, a lot of this is, you know, it's not really, there's no science behind what the movie is portraying, right? So I started
similar to Armageddon.
that a little bit, and trying to figure out like what the reality would be, how long it would take, you know, to get here and all that. See, I'm getting too far into the details. Let me just step back a second. Then I was thinking about like how much it sucked that we have a finite amount of time on this planet, and that just around the time that we're really gaining wisdom and everything, we're on our downslide and then we die, you know? So we spend our lives kind of like a collector, right? You spend your whole life collecting these comics, and then you either complete it or you die, and then they just kind of get dispersed, almost like rain, right? Like rain falls into the ocean, then, you know, it evaporates and then collects in clouds again, and then so on and so forth. It ends up in a stream somewhere, finds its way back in the ocean, and that process happens over and over again. So wouldn't it be cool if we could live longer? You know, if we could live 1,000 years, imagine what we could accomplish. And then I started to think, well, what if something happened that gave us that ability? And it wasn't necessarily something that happened here on Earth. So I created a scenario where, for whatever reason, this meteor is coming towards the Earth, or asteroid actually. It's coming towards the Earth, and we discover it, and it's about 2 years away from impacting. And, you know, all the worst of humanity happens, you know, rape, murder, like people just lose it, you know. And then after a while, people realize, like, we're all going to die anyway. Why don't we just be the best humans we can in the time that we have left? So it becomes the first time in history that, you know, you don't have religious wars. There's no strife. People are fairly nice to each other, and all the bullshit that we deal with every day, with either political ideals that we don't agree with, or, you know, whatever you think is important that really isn't, it all kind of gets put to the side, We just focus on our families and our friendships and that type of stuff. We go back to work and do our jobs the best we can and just wait for what is inevitable for all of us, which is death, you know. And for whatever reason, I've created a reason, but for whatever reason, I'm not going to tell you now. It's a black book. For whatever reason, the meteor, as it comes closer to the Earth's atmosphere, explodes into billions of pieces. And one of the pieces that lands on Earth creates a 20-mile crater. And at the epicenter of this crater is a basketball-sized orb that basically has hit, you know, the middle of this crater. And it's almost of a liquid metal, kind of like the Silver Surfer. If you look at like the Silver Surfer in the movie, that was the only cool thing they did is they made him look good. You know, otherwise, it was a horrible movie. Stupid. So, Galactus is a cloud. Come on. Anyway, sorry, I get so pissed off whenever I think of those movies that
It just sucks.
Understandable.
It's like Batman and Bane fighting during the day outside. Come on, really? Batman doing this, you know? Like, really?
Oh,
you can't kick his ass when he's doing this. You know?
You didn't like his you didn't like his heavy Muay Thai, his slowed down Muay Thai finish or whatever.
Stupid. I could have kicked Batman's ass if that was the case. But anyway, so now we're sending like investigators to check out this thing. Everybody's obviously like celebrating and happiness all across the planet. But you know, smart people, of course, immediately are like, wait a minute, what is this? Why is it here? Why was there a meteor coming? Let's discover the answers. So while they're doing it, there's like a helicopter carrying a load of materials. A cable snaps, the helicopter crashes, and the concussion sends a worker on the ground like 20 yards. You know, he's thrown like 20 yards. He's lacerated, cuts, this, that, broken arm. And he's just trying to steady himself. And he puts his hand up kind of like this, you know, not looking up, instantly turns into an infant. So now there's an infant in this pile of this man's clothes, right, where there was a grown man seconds ago. So all these other workers come and they're like, what's going on? And he's talking to them. He's like, what happened? But it's an infant. So what we discover is, for whatever reasons, there's properties in this orb that make you younger. So the closer you are in proximity, the quicker you decrease in age. And of course, the effects are lessened as you get further away from it. But if you touch it, you decrease dramatically, right, in age. And you can actually go back to sperm and egg and cease to exist if you touch it long enough. So now it's 150 years into the future. And the perimeter of this crater is all the end of the effect of the orb. So now there's a giant wall surrounding this thing, and this has become the most expensive real estate in the world. Every elite you could imagine lives there, the greatest scientists, the richest people, the best that we have, in effect, live there. And there is a sister city that is about a mile or quarter mile or so away from it, you know, surrounding it, called Bethany. And this city initially was created basically to supply and meet the needs, you know, as construction workers were building this city of Essentia, which is what the city is called. And then after a while, people just wanted to be close to that city of immortality, you know. And now there's about 100 million people or so that live there. And this is also after a cataclysmic event that happens 75 years prior to the story. So we no longer have the countries and states and cities all across the world. There's zones where human beings still live. There's only about 400 or 500 million people on the planet at this time. But the epicenter is and the crux of the story takes place, I guess, in tale of two cities, and Essentia. Essentia being the have-it-alls. You know, they have immortal life. They have all the resources they need. They have technology that is far superior to anything that outside of it. Then you have Bethany, which is kind of like a Brazilian favela, you know, poor, destitute, rundown, you know, hasn't been upgraded or updated in 100 years. You have like 3-story limitations on how high you can go because they don't want, you know, buildings getting too tall and having a vantage point over Ascension buildings. So they make sure that they are also with low technology. They use technology that is obsolete to us. Imagine if today, we had to use like World War II era or 50s era technology. That was all we were allowed to use. Meanwhile, our neighbor was using technology that's 150 years superior to what we have now. So the basics of this story, or the first 6 or 7 issue arc, is a murder mystery. It gets into some really hardcore subjects that are kind of not popular in Hollywood for multiple reasons. Part of which is you have a lot of really sick people in Hollywood, and they don't want this type of stuff getting out there. So it broaches a lot of those subjects, but then later on it gets into more like a conspiracy and a plot to take over Essentia from outside of Essentia. Because at the end of the day, like, what wouldn't you do to try to get into this place, right? Like, who wouldn't you betray? Who would you screw over? And then what would you do to stay there? There's multiple ways of being in Essentia, one of which is buying your way in, but for the people that bought their way in, they're already there. So to get in other than that, we call it the 1%ers in Essentia. 1% are out every 2 years, and 1% are brought in. So if you're a scientist, for example, and you're not performing and you're in that bottom 1%, there's a serious chance you'll be out. So if you're a scientist in Essentia, you're going to steal ideas, you're going to do whatever it takes to stay and to avoid that 1%. Then outside, what would you do to take credit for somebody's work to become a part of the 1% that goes in? So you have a lot of betrayal. It takes the worst of human nature and the best of human nature and kind of puts it together. And there's gangs and there's leagues, there's guilds. I mean, there's a lot. There's this series. I have a long life for it as long as people are interested in it. There's going to be a lot of in-depth stuff. You're going to fall in love with a character, and then you're going to learn to hate those characters that you love because you're going to find out maybe they weren't as good a person as I thought they were. And then maybe there's somebody that you thought was a really bad person, and all of a sudden you're like, well, wow, I didn't know they were doing it for those reasons. It's like I equate it to my kid. When I tell my kid no more iPad, my kid thinks I'm the worst human being on the planet. But I'm doing it so that she uses her brain function doing other things, and so that she's not some dolt when she's older. So like you're doing something for her benefit, but she doesn't see it that way, and that happens a lot in Bethany and Essentia, where the powers that be are doing things for your, not always though, for your enrichment. Sometimes they're doing it for the complete opposite. So it's just like there's a lot to uncover here. And also there's all these places, like I have scenes where, there's people that go around at great risk to themselves, and they go to old cities, abandoned cities that are 150 years abandoned or 75 years abandoned. Sorry, 75 years is the truth. And they're going over there and finding weapons and old technologies, where they're not allowed to do that. So they do it at risk, right? But they come back and that sells for high value. And the coinage that is the currency in Bethany is water, right? Because resources are hard to come by. So, they take water and they basically use a process similar to Han Solo and carbonite, and they make it like something that can be used to purchase things. And then when you need to use the water, there's a machine that you put it in and it makes it into water again, or vice versa. So, and then there's also people that work in Essentia who are given like 25-year contracts, and they have their own city within the city of Bethany where they protect each other, because you're out for 25 years and then you're back in. But if one of those people are killed, somebody else gets that opportunity. So there's a lot of betrayal happening, and a lot of stuff that I'm not going to talk about right now because I have to leave something to the imagination of the reader and something to uncover. Huh?
I'm ready for season 2.
I have like 5 years mapped out already.
Awesome.
I got the first 7 issues done with art. So we're going to do a Kickstarter for it. Jim actually said I wasn't going to do the Kickstarter because I feel like, okay, I don't really need the money from people to do it. And I'd rather leave it for other, Kickstarter campaigns that do need the money. You know what I mean? But Jim was like, no, you have to do it. It's a great way to get it out there. So, he's a very smart guy. Take his advice. Plus, I figured it's also a great way. I might be able to get system fans or fans of Torpedo in the Kickstarter, take a look at what I'm doing, and then maybe find other stuff, discover other stuff. So there could be a happy byproduct to that. And, if I can make a lot of money doing it, I'm not going to be opposed to that, because I could just use that money to put more value into Torpedo and also figure out other cool things for Essentia. Like I'm having patches made. I want people. My goal in 2 years is I want to see people at Comic-Con walking around wearing Essentia gear. And
wow. So dope.
Being kind of like an exclusive club of people that know what it is. Initially, the way if you had like a Targaryen patch on your shirt the first couple of years Game of Thrones was out, and not being familiar with it, then it blew up massive, right? Then everybody knew, Then you were buying them at gas stations, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Who the fuck wears a Targaryen patch though? I mean, I guess.
Targaryens.
Right. I mean, they were the ruling class for the longest time, so there is a lot of honor. But you forget, you only remember the incest stuff. But yeah. But hey, yeah. So I wanted to.
For the Egyptians.
What's that? I know, very true. John, so there's a couple of things. We've been with you for a while. We want to respect your time. We don't want to keep you too long if you got things to do. But I did want to ask you a couple of things. Sure. Specifically, the way you speak, the way you've seen a lot, you've learned a lot. You know how to speak to people. There's a way of handling, people that you are aware of how to do it and be respectful. Your social media.
Why do you tell people to fuck off on Instagram?
I didn't.
And then you'll bash their faces in, and you'll knock the teeth into the back of their heads.
Is that what you tell people? That's not what I've seen.
Composed.
But the thing is, no, I mean, what I was going to say is that's actually contrary to that. I noticed that you are willing to kind of talk to almost anybody. And from what I see, it's funny because, like, I know you're getting destroyed by certain media blogs, by certain, like, band blogs, right, for the stuff, your outspoken views that you have online. People take the opportunity to then bash you based off of the things that you say, which, whatever, that's their prerogative. You have certain viewpoints that, I'll be honest, like, I don't agree with everything, your opinion. I don't agree with everything you say, but I do respect your ability to have it. And I, more than anything, respect your ability to have that dialogue with people rather than just, go down to insults. At the end of the day, what I see from you is a guy who wants to make a living. He has passions. He wants to see those passions through. You have that ability to do it that so many people lack, right? You were in a band, System. I don't want to say it's 100% political because I know it wasn't. More than anything, I would say System was just fucking out there as far as, like, you guys talked on everything, right? Like politics, sex, drugs, whatever it was. Like, it was almost like everything's in your music. Yeah, there was some political points here and there. Some of them were, like, really, really far left. I think if you're like an average music fan who knows System of a Down, I think someone who, like, reads the lyrics like Prison Song, right, will then come and, like, see what you're posting on social media, and they'll be fucking confused because they'll be like, I thought John Dolmayan.
Let me explain that. So number one, we have 4 individuals in System of a Down, right, and each of us thinks differently, and on some things we're completely simpatico, right? And we agree at 100%, and other things we don't agree at all, But the vocalists have a little bit of an advantage because usually they're the lyricists as well. So Serge has always had more of a left-leaning mindset. And to be honest with you, I lean left on a lot of subjects, but not all subjects. And because of that ability, people think that the lyrics of some songs, right? Because I'd say only about 20% of our lyrics are political at all in System.
Right. Yeah.
And the rest of it is completely out there, whatever.
Right.
Some of it is nonsensical. But because of that, people have the misconception that System of a Down is like a Democrat endorsing band, right? Like a Democratic Party endorsing band. My philosophy has always been, I don't endorse the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. I think that there's good people in both parties, and there's ideals that I believe in that lean more to the left, more to the center, and more to the right. I believe in the Constitution of the United States. I believe I'm a constitutional Republican, in that I hold our rights to be important and unique in the world, where, there's places you don't have to go very far. All you have to do is go to England and see that they don't really have freedom of speech there. They're not allowed to have weapons. And because of that, they've had some problems as of late, in the last 15, 20 years. I think it's important to understand that governments can become tyrannical, and that if you have a people and a populace that is defanged and has no weaponry, then they have no options when the government becomes tyrannical. Part of the reason that we have these protections in place is so that if we do get into a situation where some fascist does come into power in the United States, we have the ability to at least form militias and fight against it. That still doesn't guarantee victory, because the argument I always get on the other side is, how are you going to fight against tanks? How are you going to fight against nukes? As if they're going to start dropping nukes on people. But it's a stupid argument. It worked very well in Vietnam. It worked very well in the Middle East, in Afghanistan. Small groups of people with weapons can be very effective against large military constructs. And at the end of the day, it's not about whether or not we think we can win against a tyrannical government. It's we have a responsibility to try, and we may fail, but no tyrannical government lasts forever. No matter how powerful it is, they'll eventually crumble. And it is only because of rebellious people who, people think I'm a bootlicker, which is insane to me. Just because I applaud and defend cops, military, and other people that put their lives on the line for us, right? Like, at the end of the day, they're doing it for us, right? Being a cop sucks in a lot of ways. I'm not saying there aren't good, bad cops, but there's also a lot of good ones, and that should be something that's brought up. I also am against the Black Lives Matter movement. I'm proud of that, because I think the Black Lives Matter movement is a bullshit movement.
Yeah, so that's something that I think a lot of people, it's hard for them to hear that, because they haven't really gotten the opportunity themselves to hear kind of, or see it through rather, from the beginning to the end. You're obviously looking into it and seeing, who runs it, what are they doing, how are they organizing. And I think the reason people I think what it is like Black Lives Matter. They hear that and you're either for it or against it. That's the popular thing to do, right? So when they hear you say that you are against the Black Lives Matter movement, which is very specific, Black Lives Matter movement does not mean you are against Black lives, because...
Well, I think it's an easy assumption to make, right?
It is.
Because even the wording of Black Lives Matter, it's actually very intelligently worded. Like, whoever came up with that was like, okay, let's put together something that if you don't agree with it, you're a racist. That's basically what they're saying. If you don't agree with my movement, you're a racist. Just like if you don't agree with the Patriot Act, you're not a patriot, right? Meanwhile, the Patriot Act, if anybody is aware of the Patriot Act, is one of the worst things our government has done. It's an infringement on our rights. They spy on
surveillance
without warrants, surveillance. It's the least patriotic thing anybody's ever passed in the United States. So I can say with great confidence that I'm completely against the Patriot Act, and that makes me a patriot. It doesn't take away from the fact that I'm a patriot.
Right.
And I can be in complete agreement that Black Lives Matter as well and equally to any other lives, including white, including Asian, including Indian, whatever, right? Whatever you are, Native American, your lives are all of value and equal. Mm-hmm. So if it was called Black Lives Matter 2, I'll be 100% behind it. But once you say Black Lives Matter, and I get the rhetoric that it doesn't mean other lives don't matter. But once you start saying all lives matter and that becomes a racist term, that's ridiculous, right? And then also, I have a major problem with the founders, some of the founders of the Black Lives Matter movement. I believe that they're either communist or Marxist in their ideals.
Well, it doesn't help when they get interviews and they say that themselves. It is right. So not best for PR. So I see that.
With that being said, I get idealism. I truly do. Everybody should be equal. Everybody should be financially secure. Everybody should have medical. A lot of things I agree with. We have a lot of social programs and programs that are made to help people in the United States, and they do so in other countries too. My singer keeps telling me about how amazing New Zealand is and how much better New Zealand is in terms of taking care of its people. And I remind him that New Zealand is about 5 million people, and they don't have to spend too much money on the military because the United States protects their ass. So at the end of the day, if New Zealand didn't have that protection, they'd probably be called China, or India, or whoever else came and took them over because they wouldn't stand a chance. So you got to look at all aspects of it. And then a lot of people tell me, oh, wait a minute though, we have socialist democracies already. And I said, no, we don't. The only socialist democracy that we really have is called Venezuela, which started as a socialist democracy, and in one generation went from one of the wealthiest and highest GDP countries in the world to people eating tires and garbage. And that was because socialist countries that embrace complete socialism always lead to a fascist dictatorship. Mm-hmm. It's every single time in history. You look at China, that's a communist country. There's so many wealthy people in China, but they're all at the top, and there's a finite amount of them, and they help each other out to get there. And then you have everybody else on one level. Crap. They're doing poorly. And that's what ends up happening in these countries. And I don't want the idealistic nature of people to bring that upon this country. And it's very possible when you have people like AOC going out there and just talking out of their ass. She really is clueless. So I'm not opposed to reforming police departments and training them better and all that. I don't know why police are sitting there giving us tickets, to be honest with you.
Well, to bring money in.
Yeah, if you're going to do that, just have a division that says we just give tickets. Don't call them police. Police should be there to protect us, to help us,
right?
To nurture core values in neighborhoods and to encourage us to be better, not to
punish us.
Tax us.
Punish us. They're not the judge, jury, and executioner. So when you have somebody like George Floyd that's killed by a cop, throw the book at that cop. That cop is a citizen at the end of the day and has to follow the rules that are set by our Congress and and the people that vote for the Congress. They have to follow our rules. They work for us,
right? Just
like the government does. So it's ludicrous to think I'm against any lives. I'm for all lives. And when you have it's really irresponsible because there's a major tug of war going on between the Democratic and Republican parties, and really it's a lose-lose because whoever gets in power, the other party does everything they can to make it so that you get nothing done while you're in power.
Correct.
Well, what kind of sense is that?
They don't meet in the middle where they should.
You're supposed to work together. So I had an idea. Okay, whoever is running for president on either side, if we get a third party, it'll be the best thing in this country. By the way, that not like a third party. I'm talking about a real third party that gets the power to get up and actually get somebody elected.
Right.
That'll be the best thing. But until we get that, I would suggest whoever is running for president, whoever loses becomes vice president. And your cabinet should be at least 30 to 40% of people that don't agree with you and are on the other side. Because then you could have a well-rounded discussion. Like let's say Bernie Sanders, who I don't agree with much he has to say, but let's say he was in President Trump's cabinet. Well, his ideas are so far to one side that they would have to meet in the middle to get anything done, right? And if there's like 6 counselors to Trump and 3 of them think really left and 3 of them think really right, they're going to have to give him advice based on what can actually get done. Then you can have Congress and the Senate support that. We can actually get things done in this country as opposed to constantly hurt our middle class and constantly hurt our poor that we're doing really nothing to help. You have 80,000 homeless people in Los Angeles. They're so concerned with plastic straws in the ocean that they do like campaigns to stop plastic straws and this, that. Meanwhile, people are sleeping on the streets. Do something about that. I'm just tired of the hypocrisy. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, there's a lot of hypocrisy out there. A lot of people in high positions, including artists and musicians. And, it's easy to be on that side of the pendulum right now. That's the easy road. Doing what I do and having people hate you for it and being vilified for it is harder. But at the end of the day, I have to understand. System of a Down has fans that are right-leaning, left-leaning. People don't give a shit about politics all across the board. If my singer is out there only talking about one aspect of it, that person is not only going to turn off fans who think more conservatively, but also is going to make people that think conservatively, that are fans of system, think less of themselves. I want them to know that even in System of a Down, which some people say is a political band, I don't really think so. We're not Rage Against the Machine that is all politics, but we have political aspect to it. I want them to know that even within this band, there's diversity of thought, and it's okay to have diversity of thought,
Right.
and that you can always meet in the middle. There's a middle ground, but you cannot come from a morally high superiority point, which is what a lot of Democrats tend to do these days. We're morally superior, so none of what you say matters because you're a racist or you're a sexist or just go ahead and put in which ist is convenient. So I have a major problem with the Democratic Party right now. 20 years ago, I had a major problem with the Republican Party. 10 years from now, I might have a major problem with the Republican Party. In the end of it, I'm always going to be the contrarian, right? Because I don't want stuff like that happened in the 50s with McCarthyism to happen again. Now you have like a cancel culture where people are losing their jobs. This essentially could be a failure because of my views. It may be I go to Hollywood with it and they're like, well, we can't touch this with a 10-foot pole because of the way you think. So I'm putting my future at risk, right? Because I want to be successful. The smartest thing for me to have done was to keep my mouth shut about my feelings. But at the end of the day, you don't always do things because it's a smart thing to do. Sometimes you do things because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
And I get messages every single day from cops, from kids. The cops are just like, look, we can't say anything. We can't do anything. We're just trying to do our jobs. We're trying to protect people. We hate what happened to George Floyd. We hate it when bad cops do bad things, but we do what we can. And if you think about cops, that's the toughest job in the world. It's worse than being in the military and being in Iraq during like a battle, because if you go in the military, generally speaking, you're there for a year, and then you're out of the combat zone unless you resign. But as a cop, you're basically in a combat zone your entire career. Your chances of getting shot at every day are 50-50. You never know when it's going to come, So it's a tough job, and there's a lot of good men and women doing it. And I want to support those men and women because those are the people that we should be concentrating on. Get more of those people to want to be cops, right? Good-hearted, good-natured people that want to help. Well, you're not going to get those people to become cops now. You're going to get even worse people want to become cops now.
Yeah.
And then you're talking about defunding and all that. And I'm all for taking money and putting it into different social programs and training and, get the homeless off the streets and all that. But aren't we taxed enough? How about we allocate the taxes in a proper way? And, the government does nothing well. So why give them more power to do things? Give it to like private industries and say, we have a homeless problem. Whoever comes up with the best solution at the cheapest price, they get the funding. I guarantee you that in a few months, you will have great ideas and great programs. But no, what do? We put billions of dollars into it. It gets shaken down. The tree gets shaken so much there's no leaves left on it by the time it gets to the people that it's really supposed to help. We had Obamacare. What was it, a $4 billion website that never worked? $4 billion? I guarantee you if you gave that to a private industry and said, we're going to pay you to run this for us, it would have gotten done for $100 million. Guarantee it. Give me $10 million, I'll get it done for you.
Yeah.
So it's just like, and I totally understand most of the people that vilify me are really young, idealistic people. And, there is kind of a very left-leaning, school system that we have, college system that we have. It's mostly left-leaning, so they're taught one way. And, we have a society of people that have been told for the last 25 years that everybody's equal and there's no winners in life and no losers. And then they get out in the real world and they're like, well, how come I'm not getting 80 grand a year for my job? I took social studies and they told me everybody's equal, and there's an agenda out there. And I think it's an agenda to destroy this country from the inside because this is the best country in the world. And, it's not xenophobic to say it. It's just a reality of it. You have more chances of prospering in this country than any other country. And there's a reason why all these countries, including Canada, that have free health care, people that have any money have private health care that they pay for. And if they have any real problems, they get on a plane and they come to the United States for treatment. There's a reason for it, and I can tell you from experience, my grandmother died in a hospital in Canada. She was in a hallway for 2 days on a bed in a hallway because they didn't have rooms. Because again, government does nothing well. So if you want to waste money, give them more taxes because they'll spend it on stupid shit or pocket it themselves.
They are pocketing. Yeah.
Wasn't there a family member of Obama's that was involved in the site for Obamacare? I mean, there's so many back alley deals that we don't even know about, and probably billions of dollars offshore that we'll never know about. And it's just like it's this constant tug of war that these two parties are doing, and the only loser is us,
right?
Because they go to dinners together with each other.
Thank you.
Let them fool you.
Yes, they do.
Regardless
of
as much as they fight.
Down on each other. They might even get me and my singer coming down on each other. Because like his views are, in my opinion, batty, and he must think I'm a nutcase. For my views. So, and that's all it's meant to do is to separate us, and then give us other shiny toys to concentrate on.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, our life's not getting any better.
Right. And one bad thing that happens is this belief that if people disagree on any of the issues, that they can't still have conversations with each other.
Yeah, that's the worst part.
Yeah, but you generally can't have conversation with somebody that thinks they are morally superior to you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no enlightening somebody that thinks you're wrong just for having your opinion and that you're a bad person just for having your opinion. Right. And that's kind of like being force-fed down a lot of young people's minds right now and throats, and saying that if you don't think this way, you're a bad person. Who cares about the ramifications? And also it creates a really bad atmosphere out there of racial tension. Because if you're telling black people that white people are all racist, or that there's systematic racism everywhere, which there's no proof of systematic racism by the government of the United States in any way, shape, or form in modern times. Of course, there was, during like Jim Crow and even in the 60s with the Civil Rights Movement. But guess who the racists were? They were Democrats. You mean
racism?
Erase all that.
You mean racism that has legislation behind it? Is that what you mean?
Correct.
Right. So I think that's another thing that people get hung up on too, is when people say there's no such thing as systematic racism. There is no legislation behind that backs racism in the country.
That's correct.
That's not to say that there aren't people who aren't racist. There's a lot of people who are racist.
But that's not systematic.
I think it probably depends on you have to make a concise effort to understand how you're defining that term. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess it's just a matter of perspective at the end.
Exactly.
How are you looking at it?
Right. For me personally, like I have a hard time accepting someone saying there's no such thing as systematic racism, because in my opinion, a system is in place where there's people who are in control and who have a sense of control, and from that control they kind of disperse, whatever it might be, whether it be law, whether it be expectation, whatever it might be, right? I grew up as a Hispanic, right? Mm-hmm. In growing up Hispanic, I was taught by my family system, and it's not obviously government system, but in my family system, I was taught at home to fear black people, and that's because we are in direct competition with other minorities in the country. So as a Hispanic man or as Hispanic, you have to be better than whatever other minority is trying to take your job. The white person, whoever is in control, already puts you at a disadvantage because we can't speak the language, we weren't born here, whatever it might be. So it's already instilled in a lot of people. And so I think it's difficult for that separation to happen and not really see it. Like it's impossible for me not to see it because I was born into it and I was raised with it ingrained in my mind. You know what I mean? So,
well, I'll tell you, Hispanics and blacks are at a disadvantage in this way, and that where they live is predominantly led by Democrats, right? And has been for decades. And Democrats like to keep people as much dependent on the government as possible in a lot of cases, right? So that has done no positives for Hispanics and African American people that live in those areas. Thank you. Okay.
So yeah, so it's like Democrats bank on the fact that, hey, let's get this group of people to be dependent on us, because then it just gives us more power. We're able to kind of get more power out of the dependence on us. right?
It's all about dependence on the government, because
Right.
once you become dependent on the government, it's a slippery slope, right? Then you
Right.
have generational dependency. So we had,
But isn't that racist?
that's not systematic.
But that's the Democrats. That's Democrats. They're part of the system.
That's not systematic. That's you're electing people. You have the ability to elect people that are going to take away your benefits or give you more. So you have to instill core values. You have to Hispanics have pretty good family structure, right?
For the most part, I mean, it depends on the family, but yeah, I think we did. Yeah.
See, I can only speak from Armenians, and we have a very
Right.
good core family structure.
We're
right?
very similar. Like we're very similar. Like you put like family is everything, obviously for your culture as well. Like the people in your unit, that's who you protect, and that's why I think that it perpetuates in my family. That's why racism was perpetuated, is because we are Hispanic. This is our family. This is who we're related to. You're first. We are first. So put yourself first. Always take. You want to put yourself in a situation that's going to be advantageous.
Did you grow up in a Hispanic neighborhood, or was it multicultural?
I would say it's multicultural. So it was kind of just.
I'll tell you, where I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, and my group of friends, I didn't know another Armenian. I was like one of the only Armenians in the valley. Most of the Armenians had congregated in Hollywood and Glendale at the time.
Yeah.
So the school I went to, my friends were in our little group of people that played Dungeons and Dragons together. Was a black guy who's still a friend of mine, James Hazley. He plays in my band, These Great Men. You may have.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. The cover band. Yeah.
Right. So James, and then there was a good friend of mine that was Italian. There was a friend of mine that was Korean named Beck. We used to call him Beck because his last name was something to do with Beck. And he reminded us of the singer Beck later on. So that name stuck, and we still call him Beck. His real name's Danny, But anyway, so what I'm saying is we had a lot of different people in our group. So maybe it also could be because I look at the world through my eyes, right?
Right.
And my experiences. And because of that, maybe I don't see certain things.
Yeah.
If I looked at it from your perspective of your shoes, maybe I would look at it differently. But it's just
Right.
a matter of getting to the point where, as Americans, we understand that everybody deserves the same equal opportunity to be successful, and that we strive towards creating legislation and rules of law that give everybody the same opportunity. And I think we have done that.
Right.
I could be wrong. I'm not a lawyer, but in general, I think we have that here in the United States. So to say that, especially when there's so many minorities that are succeeding here in the United States, there's the Asian Americans, there's Indian Americans, there's Black Americans, there's Hispanic Americans, Armenian Americans, and we're all succeeding in our own way, So I think that as long as we have that equal opportunity, then we're going to get somewhere, And I also feel like the racial divide was actually diminishing until it became so much of a talking point. Like it got worse, in my opinion, in the last 12 years.
It's definitely, and I think that's why people get confused. I'm not, because I see what you post and I'm hearing what you're saying. I feel like you're more centrist. I know you say you're conservative, but I feel like you're.
See, by the way, let me just clear something up. You're right. I am a centrist.
Yeah.
But I have to go hyper conservative to combat the hyper liberal post that Serge says. Really, that's where.
Well, you got to offset.
Correct.
Yeah. But
by the way, to my detriment.
Well, okay. Touche. Yeah, I think the important thing is, and this is why I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about it, because it's impossible to do this on Instagram. It's impossible to allow a blog to take something you post and expand on it and think they know what you're talking about. They're never going to do that.
No.
I think.
Well, they don't ask me.
Right. Well, that's why I like that we get the opportunity to do this, because why am I going to listen to anybody else third hand telling me what you think when I have the opportunity to straight up ask you what you think,
And I shrink away from no questions, by the way.
And I love that. I love that because I was seeing in before all the stuff about system, dude. If you want to know what's going on with system, look up your interviews, because you fucking don't sugarcoat anything. Everyone knows exactly why there's no system right now. Just look up John's interview. Anyways.
I'm actually being nice, by the way.
It's funny. You're being honest, which is beautiful. But I think what I was getting back to is I don't like the place that we've gotten to where, like, You came into my life at a very young age, right? Your music, and then later on your comics. You've influenced me a great deal, right? So I appreciate the things that you've influenced me on and that you've given, right? And as a fan, whatever. And then when I hear you speak, I don't know if it's because that gives me the opportunity to listen to you and give you the benefit of the doubt, or
Well, you're open-minded to it because you have an interview show.
Yeah,
so
but
you have to be open-minded to people talking about things. Sometimes things that you're not comfortable with.
yeah, but I think there's interview shows that won't even talk to you because of some of the stuff you say. You know,
I don't doubt that.
Yeah, there's people that don't want to talk to you because of the things that you say, and I understand that. I understand that, but the thing is, I don't think they get 100% of your viewpoint by just shutting themselves off to you and not allowing you to expand on what you say. Because
I will say though, part of it is my fault because I go to such an extreme on my Instagram, right? That it's hard for them to. But to be honest with you though, as much of an extreme as I go to on some stuff, even when I put things that are very like vague and open to to both sides, I get hammered for it anyway. It doesn't matter. I could post a flower up there and they're like, fuck Trump.
Well, that's why I liked you put the presidential seal, but it said like the seal of comic books.
Yes. I did that as a troll, by the way.
Right, I know, and that's why when I read it, I go, that's hilarious because this is exactly what you're talking about. Is you want to see what.
By the way, I made those. They're in my office. They're really cool.
So what I was getting at is, this is an example of what we need. Is like, I might not agree with 100% of the things you say, right? I don't agree with a statement you might make. That doesn't mean I'm not going to fucking talk to you, because I want to know if by what you say, is that really what I'm hearing? Is that what you mean? I have to know that, because how can I make any opinion about you accurately if I don't give you the opportunity? And I feel like we're at a point in our country, like, you know, I'm not a Trump supporter.
People are very closed off, and the one thing they don't realize is, what if I'm wrong?
Right.
How am I ever going to discover I'm wrong?
Thank you.
If you don't sit there and tell me why you think you're right.
Right. Yeah. To talk to you about it and give you like you know, like.
And listen to me and really understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
And then I have to listen to you and really understand where you're coming from. Hey, man, most of my friends are liberal. Guess what? We still love each other.
Yeah.
You know? Jim is a very liberal. I mean, it's not my business to discuss his politics, but he's a very liberal guy in a lot of things.
Right.
You know, and we have discussions, and I say, agree to disagree on this one. You know, my good friend Mark Brooks, he's as liberal as they come. You know, and he gives me great advice. And he's a fantastic artist, of course, and did one of our covers for Detective 1027, available at torpedocomics.com.
That was slick.
The point is that we find that about 95% of the things we agree on 100%. And then there's that 5% where it's like, okay, we don't agree with. Life goes on. You know, if you don't like chocolate ice cream, and I love chocolate ice cream, are you wrong for not liking chocolate ice cream?
Yes.
Yes, you are.
We'll fucking fight you on that one, John.
Nutella chocolate, then you're really wrong.
But one thing that people have to keep in mind is what you said a few minutes ago, that your beliefs are based on your life, your world, the world as you have seen it, the experiences you have had, because perception is reality.
Yeah.
Perception is reality, and by the way, knowing that, I have to be open to somebody that's had a completely different life, somebody that's had horrible interactions with cops, for example. Their whole life has been one bad interaction with cops. I have to listen to that person, get to know where they're coming from, so that I can gain perspective. And that could or could not change my opinion. But at the end of the day, it's about having the compassion and the wherewithal to look at another human being that's across from you, that's had a different path in life, and saying that you matter to me as well, and your opinions matter to me, and I'm going to take that in consideration with everything I do. It's just about courtesy at the end of the day.
Right.
Hands down. Most important thing is courtesy.
And for some, like, you know, I don't know what it is, but it's like, I feel like we're not watching, like, I feel like we're watching a football game where you're rooting for one side or the other to win, and then at the end of the game, you just go your separate ways. But like what you said,
a friend of mine told me last week, he goes, I don't watch the news ever. He goes, CNN is made purely to make people on the left afraid, and Fox News is purely there to make people on the right afraid.
Yeah, it's true.
That's it. That's their entire job and focus, is to make you afraid of your neighbors.
Right.
So don't, I try to find news where I can,
It's impossible, man.
Sensationalist news is the most entertaining to watch.
Right.
Like
when you find a good outlet, let us know.
Well, you know what? I like a couple outlets. I try to gain perspective from different news organizations. Like I'll read the New York Times, for example, which is very left wing, right? And then I'll read the Epoch Times, which is more right wing. I'll read Daily Wire because I love Ben Shapiro. I think he's really intelligent and has some interesting viewpoints.
Oh, absolutely, yes, love Ben Shapiro.
And then I actually really liked Don Lemon until recently. In the last 3 or 4 years, I think he lost it. But he used to be very balanced, and I wish he would go back to that because I really enjoyed. Although that's more entertainment, and I can't watch CNN anymore. It's just impossible because you could see what they're doing. It's clear.
Yeah. Well, so that's
when people are suckered by it, it just doesn't. I'm like, come on, man, really?
When I want to, yeah, that's why. Like, if I want to see what's being reported by one side, I go to the other side to see what they're saying. Like, if anything
You're seeing the worst.
Well,
the
yeah,
worst
like
of the other side.
anytime.
Still the BBC. BBC is still very good. And actually, Al Jazeera is a really good news organization. You ever
heard of them?
Read
Yeah.
Al Jazeera or watch Al Jazeera?
I don't think I've watched it, but I've heard it. I mean, like.
So Al Jazeera is the network that Vice President Al Gore. We're supposed to be underwater already. You're aware of that, right?
Oh, the global warming.
Yes, we're already supposed to be dead. But it didn't stop Al Gore from selling his news network, his cable news network or channel to Al Jazeera for what was it, 150 million or something like that.
But he sold his network to Al Jazeera?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he cashed out real nice. And I just feel like there's
much
information out there that's bullshit.
He's a good guy though. He's a Democrat. He's a good guy, right?
Well, they're all good guys for themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
so,
it's
at the end of the day, we're the dupes.
Yes.
We're the ones that are out there suffering while they get richer and richer.
Yeah.
And we all know that there's powers that are running these politicians. You watch Billions? You ever watch Billions?
No, but I heard of it.
That's like a microcosm of the way life works.
Is that the one that's about? Was that the same one that was about like the Madoff thing, or is that a different show?
It's kind of no, just it's fiction. So just watch it. It's good.
Okay.
Yeah. But like when you watch that, you're like, of course, the inside deals. Who's going to get prosecuted? If you don't have money, you get the rail. And if you do have money, you get scot free. But then there's like somebody with $10 billion calling the shots. All these politicians, they all work for somebody far richer than they are.
Exactly.
That's how they get into power. Because you know what? Somebody like me that would probably be good in politics and do what's best for people, I'll never get elected. I would get destroyed. They would find every negative thing in my life because I didn't spend the last 30 years setting myself up for politics, living a squeaky clean life.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave you at this. I got to get going. My wife's gonna.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's all right.
But hey, I'll do this again if you guys want. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, man.
Likewise.
I honestly, we really appreciate it. We thank you for your time.
There's nothing I've said today that you can't put up. You can put.
I love it.
Don't even edit it.
John,
That's awesome.
I always appreciate how open and honest you are. I'm really glad that you're able. I really want other people who listen to this to understand. If you don't agree with somebody, you don't agree with what they're saying, ask them about it, because you're never going to learn about viewpoints without asking. At the end of the day, I think, you're just a guy that wants to have a good life for his family, and you appreciate the ability to be able to do that. So do we. But anyways.
There's a whole list of people on my Instagram. I don't know if you guys can see it.
No, I can't.
No, it's too bright.
There we go.
These are all conversations with people that don't agree with me.
Yeah,
I have my general. That's where I put all my people that don't agree with me that I have conversations with. And these are, we're conversing with each other. And then I have my primary, and those are the people I do agree with.
Right.
And I talk to the people. Here's a young lady, Bridget, who I speak with all the time. and she always sends me stuff that's contrary to what I post, and we have nice dialogue about it. You know,
Exactly.
And sometimes I convince her otherwise, but usually we're both pretty steadfast in what we think.
Yeah.
We still have a nice dialogue about it, and there's nothing negative about it because at the end of the day, we're just trying to enlighten each other.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Before you go,
as long as you do it in a non-violent fashion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Before you go, I got to tell you, when you were opening the Orange County shop under your name, there was a part of the line that got hit by an egg by some jackasses that were driving by.
Yeah,
and
what a dickhead.
Someone threw an egg at the crowd and it hit a guy in the back. You took him
Was it
inside. It was me. Yeah, it was me. So
You threw the egg?
no, I got hit by
you
the
got
egg.
hit with the egg.
You got hit by the egg.
I was the
remember
guy that
you.
got hit by it. And
I remember you.
you went outside and you took me and you brought me to the front of the line and you told me I didn't have to have anything. I can get whatever I wanted signed. Jim put a little head sketch on the book that I had because Jim was doing the signing. So I knew back then you were a good guy. I knew back then that you were I knew before that, but I mean, that's why, like, when all this shit started coming about your name and I started looking, it's like, oh, fuck, what's he saying? You're a good dude. And
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I've
done a lot of things that nobody will ever know because I don't advertise it. I don't do things so that people know about it.
That's the way to do it.
I just do things because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that you got hit with the egg. That sucked. I wish we could have caught the guy and beat his ass.
I'm sorry it happened too, because we still hear about it to this day.
You know what? Kids do stuff like that sometimes, and you have to take it with a grain of salt. They're not trying to kill anybody.
Right. Thank you. So, anyways, I just want to say I really appreciate you taking the time. We also very much appreciate you allowing us to ask you questions, to question you on things, to kind of go back and forth, because this is the only way we're going to learn about each other. This is the only way we're going to learn that we have to take care of one another. We have to understand everyone else's viewpoints. You cannot shut people off. You cannot shut people out. If you care about someone who has an opposing view, ask them about it. You have to.
It's all about perspective.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you don't know what somebody else is going through. You know?
Right.
Never know.
You never know. You never know what led him to that place. So kindness always overcomes. You know, at the end of the day. Look at what Gandhi achieved. Non-violently. You know? He brought the British Empire to its knees. Anyway, we'll end it on that very serious note.
Everybody hit torpedocomics.com, order your exclusive Detective Comics 1027 variant covers. Tony Daniel, Terry Dodson, Simone Bianchi, Mark Brooks, Lieber Mayo, Frank Cho, Bill Sienkiewicz, Ben Oliver. All of them are exclusive to Torpedo.
It's like a all-star team we have. By the way, the guys, I don't know if you've seen all the covers, but they're sick.
Yeah.
Sick.
So
Joe made like a tubby Batman. I think he was trying to make fun of me.
He drew you all buff in that last detective that he did.
No, that was Lee. Jim Lee.
Oh, Jim Lee. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right, John. We really appreciate it, man. Have a good one.